Welcome back to British Accent Podcast. Today's topic is a bit raw, a bit real, why it's hard to be honest with yourself. And honestly, I think we've all avoided certain truths at some point, haven't we?
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds simple, just tell yourself the truth. But it's anything but easy. Sometimes the hardest person to be honest with is, well, you.
It's strange, isn't it? You'd think we'd know ourselves better than anyone else. But often, we build these little stories to protect ourselves from pain, regret, shame, fear.
Yeah, like those quiet justifications we tell ourselves, it's fine, I'm fine, this is what I want, even when deep down, something doesn't sit right.
Exactly. And sometimes we're not even lying outright. We're just dodging. Not looking too closely. Not asking the real questions, because we're afraid of the answers.
Because those answers might demand change. And change is uncomfortable. Even when you know the truth would free you, facing it can feel like too much.
There's also pride, isn't there? Admitting we were wrong, or that we've outgrown something we once fought hard for, that's tough.
Oh, massively. There's this little voice that says, but you've already invested so much time, you can't back out now. So we stay in situations that aren't true to us, just to save face.
And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle, staying in a job that no longer excites you, clinging to habits that don't serve you anymore, saying yes when you mean no.
And you convince yourself you're doing the right thing. But over time, it chips away at you. You feel disconnected, restless, not quite yourself, and you can't figure out why.
Because you're living a version of life that doesn't fully align with your truth. And deep down, you know it. That knowing is always there, even when you're not ready to admit it.
It shows up in all sorts of ways: irritability, burnout, anxiety. And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. Until eventually, you have to look.
But that moment, when you do finally face yourself with honesty, it's heavy, but it's also powerful. It's the start of real change.
You can't heal from what you pretend isn't there. And being honest with yourself, as brutal as it feels at first, is the most compassionate thing you can do.
It's you saying, I respect myself enough to tell the truth. Even if it hurts. Even if it means letting go. That's not weakness. That's strength.
I think one of the biggest reasons we avoid honesty is that we don't want to disappoint the version of ourselves we imagined. You know, where we thought we'd be by now, who we thought we'd become.
Yes, the idea of admitting, this isn't working, or this isn't me anymore, can feel like a failure. But in reality, it's just growth. You're not who you were 5 years ago, and you shouldn't be.
But people cling to consistency. We like the comfort of things staying the same, even when we're no longer happy. Changing course feels like letting people down, or letting ourselves down.
Or admitting that the path you've been walking for so long isn't taking you where you want to go anymore. And that's terrifying, isn't it?
It really is. But there's also something deeply brave about pausing, reassessing, and choosing differently. Saying, I want something else now. That's not giving up, it's realignment.
And it starts small. Not with a grand announcement, but maybe with a quiet moment where you finally tell yourself the truth about how you're feeling.
Even just whispering it in your own mind. I'm not happy. I feel lost. I'm tired of pretending. That kind of honesty cracks something open.
Because the truth might feel heavy at first, but denying it is heavier. There's a weight to self-deception. It drains you, silently, over time.
But honesty? It gives you energy. Not all at once, but steadily. The more you speak it, the more power you get back. You feel a bit lighter, a bit more awake.
And it gives you choices. As long as you're lying to yourself, you're stuck. You can't fix what you won't admit is broken.
That's the shift, isn't it? When you stop trying to maintain the illusion, and you start building something real. Not perfect, but honest.
And from that honesty, clarity grows. You may not have all the answers yet, but you've taken the first step. You've come home to yourself.
And that's where everything meaningful begins.
You know what's interesting? Once you get used to being honest with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, it becomes kind of addictive. Not in a reckless way, but in a freeing way.
I get that. You stop wanting to carry around false versions of your life. You'd rather sit with the discomfort of the truth than with the pressure of pretending.
Because pretending eats up so much energy, doesn't it? Constantly performing, adjusting, managing how everything looks on the outside, it's exhausting.
And what for? So people think you've got it all sorted? When deep down, you know you're out of alignment. It's like polishing a window that's cracked from the inside.
That's a perfect way to put it. And eventually, the cracks start to show. No matter how much you tidy things up on the surface.
And honestly, when you do show up honestly, even just with yourself, it creates space for change. You stop dragging your feet and start making decisions that actually reflect who you are now.
Even if those decisions scare you. Leaving a job, admitting you've changed your mind, saying no when you used to say yes, it's all part of becoming more aligned.
And people might not get it. They might be confused or even disappointed. But that's okay. You're not here to live someone else's version of your life.
The truth isn't always pretty, but it is always kind in the long run. Even when it hurts at first, it points you back to what matters.
And if you've spent years running from your own reflection, the first time you stop and really look, it can be overwhelming. But it's also one of the bravest things you'll ever do.
Because you're not just seeing what's hard. You're also seeing what's possible. What's waiting on the other side of all that pretending.
And that version of you, the honest one, the present one, the one who finally stopped hiding, is the one that can actually move forward.
Not just existing, but living. Fully, deeply, truthfully.
I think sometimes we overcomplicate honesty. We imagine it means having to fix everything immediately, or explain ourselves to everyone. But really, it just starts with recognizing what's true, without rushing to change it.
Right? Like saying, this is where I am. It's not perfect. I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm not pretending anymore. That's enough.
And that recognition alone can be incredibly grounding. You stop running in circles because you're no longer chasing someone else's definition of success, or happiness, or identity.
You start listening to your own voice again. Not the voice that tries to keep everyone comfortable, but the one that actually tells you what you need.
It's mad how quiet that voice can become when you've spent years overriding it. But it never disappears. It's still there, waiting for you to tune back in.
And sometimes, when you finally do hear it again, it says things you weren't expecting. Like, I don't want this anymore, or I need rest, or even, I'm not okay.
And that's not weakness. That's awareness. Self-honesty isn't about being flawless, it's about being awake. Awake enough to notice your real feelings without judgment.
And awake enough to make new choices when old ones stop working. Even if you can't explain them to anyone else yet.
The thing is, no one else lives inside your head. No one else feels what you feel day to day. So if you can't be honest with yourself, you're living for a version of life that's built on assumptions.
And that disconnect, it catches up with you. In small ways at first, tiredness, frustration, lack of motivation. But over time, it builds into a kind of emotional fog.
Until one day, you realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. That's usually the turning point. When the need for honesty becomes louder than the fear of it.
And once you cross that line, once you let the truth in, it's like opening a window in a stuffy room. Things start to shift. Not all at once, but steadily.
And you know what's surprising? When you finally stop lying to yourself, life doesn't necessarily get easier straight away, but it does become clearer. You stop second-guessing so much.
Yeah, and you start trusting yourself more. Like, I might not know where this is going, but at least I know I'm being real about it. That sort of quiet confidence shows up.
And you become less reactive. Less panicked. Because you're not running from anything anymore. You're meeting life as it is.
It also helps you show up more honestly in your relationships. When you're real with yourself, you stop needing to be performative around other people too.
Right, because if you're pretending with yourself, chances are you're also pretending with them, saying you're fine, agreeing when you're not, smiling when it's actually all falling apart.
But once you drop that inner mask, the outer ones start to fall off too. And that's when the real connection happens, with yourself, with others, even with your work.
And it's not about oversharing or spilling your guts to everyone. It's just about showing up as the version of you that's not hiding.
Exactly. It's that quiet kind of authenticity. You don't have to announce it. People feel it. You walk into a room and there's just something grounded about you.
That kind of energy comes from alignment. From not fighting yourself all the time.
And even when you're still figuring things out, which, let's be honest, we all are, you do it with a sense of inner steadiness. Because at least you're telling the truth now.
And that matters more than always knowing the next move. Because clarity doesn't come from certainty, it comes from honesty.
So true. Sometimes we wait until we've got everything sorted before we admit what we really want. But the truth usually comes before the plan, not after.
Yeah. Truth first, then clarity. Then action. That's the order. Trying to act without the truth is like building on sand.
And the longer you delay honesty, the longer you delay peace. Because pretending isn't peaceful, it's noisy. It's exhausting.
But truth, even when it's hard, has this calmness to it. It sits quietly, waiting. And when you finally let it in, you realize, it's not here to destroy you. It's here to guide you.
I think if there's one takeaway from this chat, it's that honesty with yourself doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be quiet. Gentle. A soft return to who you've always been underneath everything.
Yeah, and it's not a one-time event. It's something you revisit again and again. As life changes, so do you, and so does the truth you need to tell yourself.
It's a lifelong conversation, really. But every time you choose honesty, you get closer to something real. Something solid you can actually build on.
So, if you're listening right now and feeling a bit off, or like something isn't lining up, don't be afraid to look inward. Not to judge yourself, but just to listen.
Start there. With curiosity instead of criticism. Ask yourself what's true right now, and give yourself permission to hear the answer, whatever it is.
Because the truth isn't your enemy. It's your compass.
And with that, thanks so much for spending your time with us today. We hope this gave you something to reflect on, something real to carry into your week.
You've been listening to the British Accent Podcast with me, Nick.
And me, Emily. Take care of yourself, and we'll catch you next time.